Let's recall a reminder with some of you having selective vision or hearing. We're going to call this the causes and effects. There are consequences to an action, whether it is good or bad. The surprise is when people only want to look at the end result and not use critical thinking to see what caused many things to occur. The effects to a lot of this administration actions were causes of the previous administration. To begin, a disrespect and disregard was allowed against those seeking citizenship and all they went through and spent to become legalized in the United States of America. Also, the citizens was highly trampled on when they couldn't obtain the same or better resources and luxuries given to people that decided to bypass our laws of the land. You know, the taxpayers. Let's get into this. Like, share, comment, and subscribe and select all for future updates.
Tonight, officials bracing for what could be a record month for border crossings. More than 142,000 migrant encounters reported in the first half of September alone, now on pace to match or surpass previous monthly highs this year.
It just keeps growing. Every surge gets a little bit bigger.
Border communities and shelters pushed to the limit, the influx of migrants overwhelming cities coast to coast. The thousands now arriving have been on the road for weeks, and more are coming. We traveled to one of the most perilous legs of the journey north in Colombia. We met this group praying before beginning the trek through a brutal stretch of jungle called the Darien Gap. There are signs of humanity left behind in the dirt. A pair of jeans, a shoe, a small children's sock. Every migrant we spoke to there trying to make it to the U.S., the vast majority from Venezuela. Like Jose and Maria Torres, carrying their baby boy up the muddy hills.
Que es difícil hablar sobre eso.
They tell me they are risking it all to give their baby a better future. And David, we haven't seen a surge like this since the Biden administration enacted new enforcement measures back in the spring. Here in border cities like El Paso, they're doing whatever they can to get out in front of all of this before thousands more migrants arrive.
Mayor Brandon Johnson's executive order, and populated primarily in Black neighborhoods.
Our people, we always look out for everybody else. We are the most generous people on the planet.
The Trump administration has caused so much consternation and division. Look, we are a welcoming city ordinance. Our local police department will not ever cooperate with ICE.
What I'm simply offering is a pathway to resistance. Oh, let me hear you, Chicago. Let me get you a little bit more noisy out there. Yes. No federal troops in the city of Chicago. No militarized force in the city of Chicago. We're going to defend our democracy in the city of Chicago. We're going to protect the humanity of every single person in the city of Chicago. And we got the baddest freaking labor movement in the city of Chicago, birthed right here. We're going to take this fight across America, but we got to defend the home front first.
And the best way. It's all people attending a training on how to push back against ICE and Trump in Chicago. Alderman Andre Vasquez hosted this Saturday morning. He called it a community defense workshop. The entire auditorium at Mathers High School filled up, and people were fired up there.
We keep us safe. We keep us safe. We keep us safe. We keep us safe.
Trainings were on filming and watching ICE, mutual aid, canvassing for Know Your Rights information. There was protest, communication, and court support, and the tone was generally pretty aggressive. People there clearly wanted to disrupt ICE's work in Chicago.
Use your cars. Block the parking lot. Don't let them leave with your neighbors. Right? Make their lives a living hell. Right?
The alderman told me the day before he expected around 300 people. He said around 700 showed up. And he said they came because what's going on either directly affects them or it affects their neighbors.
Turnout's there because people know what moment we're in history, and they want to be on the right side of it.
What moment do you think that is?
Fascism. It's what we've seen in history books, and we're watching it in real time. As much as we're doing, we're trying to do it as quickly as possible because the federal government can move a lot quicker and they're going to move a lot more harshly.
This is the biggest sort of training like this that I've seen, but there are tons of efforts across Chicago like this of people trying to either make sure ICE isn't violating civil liberties or just directly impede its work. It's been really interesting for me as someone who covers the city council for the Chicago Tribune to see the way aldermen are kind of at the forefront of leading a resistance to Donald Trump and to ICE here in Chicago. And that's something I'm going to keep reporting on.
This message was captured at the high school protest in Cicero, Illinois. And look who did that. Prosperity, not the coup.
Back out to Jonah. We've been watching a developing situation there at the ICE Broadview Processing Center. And just a few moments ago, we know that there was a tense moment of the agents coming out. Are you okay? Want to ask you that first and foremost.
I took a little bit of that gas. I can feel it in my throat, but not nearly as much as the people who are right up front trying to block a vehicle. As you know, the protest down the street was in this position. The driveway is to the right. The building you can see is all boarded up. There was a vehicle that was getting ready to move. They could see the movements of the agents behind the gated fence. And then when that vehicle came out, the officers who are in positions on top of the building took aim toward the sidewalk. They fixed their weapons at the sidewalk. They have some kind of pellets that they're shooting, and they started to fire, and then the gas was deployed. We talked to 40th Ward Alderman Andre Vasquez. He was right up front when that gas was deployed.
We were kind of on the front line of it as a vehicle was coming. And so we were looking to block the vehicle. It still kept driving, almost ran over someone. And at that point, we started seeing the pellets. So it was tear gas, it was pepper spray, a little mix of both. So you could feel it even under the mask and start coughing and like start, spitting out and get everything. So
you had a mask on at the time?
Yeah, so even through the mask, you can feel it. Like right now, I can still feel a little burn in the eyes, back of the neck, just because of the chemicals themselves. And then just, I was able to walk, clear my head a little bit, then grab water. One, to take care of myself, but then make sure other people were okay.
Indictments and arrests against protesters have become part of Operation Midway Blitz. Whether the cases stick in court could depend on the legal definition of obstruction.
The Broadview ICE facility has been the place of protest for many politicians running for public office, including progressive congressional candidate Kat Abu-Ghazaleh. Seen here in braids, she and 5 others have been indicted with a series of felonies related to a protest where she allegedly, quote, banged aggressively and pushed an ICE agent's vehicle. Abu-Ghazaleh says she was exercising her First Amendment rights.
It's going to depend on a lot of factors and circumstances that are difficult to tell or discern from a short video snippet.
But Stephen Schwinn, a UIC School of Law professor, says physically interfering with a federal agent doing his job is the clearest definition of obstruction or impediment. The Trump administration has used both terms to arrest people protesting ICE enforcement.
Chicago Alderman Andre Vasquez, our guest now, represents the city's 40th Ward. Welcome, sir. You heard much of that. Any thoughts of your own to add on that interaction between Chicago police and federal agents in Chicago?
Yeah, thank you for having me. By virtue of being the chair of the Committee on Immigrant and Refugee Rights, part of our job is to inspect and investigate when you see these CPD and ICE interactions, right? CPD is not allowed to block anything, but they also do not coordinate based on our Welcoming City ordinance. And so a lot of the incidents that we had seen that happened over the weekend seem to be people who are very untrained as far as the federal agents. I mean, in one instance, they threw out a tear gas canister outside of a car in the middle of the street and actually tear gas CPD who was there. So I think there's just what's being spread out, the narrative compared to what's happening on the ground. There seems to be a dissonance there that's not accurate.
I know there are lawsuits now from both the state of Illinois, city of Chicago to try to block this guard deployment. So that came up at the White House briefing today when Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, was asked about Democrats and their concerns about troops in the cities, essentially. And here's what she said.
Look at this headline from over the weekend. At least 30 people shot during the weekend in Democrat-run Chicago. You guys are framing this like the president wants to take over the American cities with the military. The president wants to help these local leaders who have been completely ineffective in securing their own cities. There's a positive formula for that. Look at Washington, D.C. The murder rate has declined significantly.
Alderman Vasquez, what would you say to that?
BS. No one here in this city needs that kind of help. In fact, them showing up has created more chaos and less public safety. We are seeing streets being blocked. People can't get to where they need to. Businesses are suffering because there's ICE incidents occurring everywhere and people being snatched up. This past Saturday, we had a meeting that we scheduled just to have with the community to talk about how we stand up for our neighbors. We had 700 people from the community come by, which has never happened, because none of them want the federal government intervening in this way. None of them want the National Guard. They understand that we keep us safe, and we understand that what Donald Trump is doing is disrupting and dividing communities to serve his own ends.
So what are you doing next here? Is that lawsuit you think is gonna go a long way? I mean, what's the next step, or what would you like to see the next step to be?
I mean, we'd love to see the president to actually do things to help, right? Which revolve around investment, putting money where it needs to be. Right now, they're making cuts across the board. So whether you're in a blue state, blue city, red city, you know the government is screwing you. But right now, what they're doing,
social programs and things like that, rather than this, is what you're saying, or?
Yeah, like what you need across the country. You got somebody in Kentucky right now that can't pay their bills. Their kids aren't getting a good education. They can't blame anybody who Donald Trump wants to blame. It is the federal government not meeting their needs. And when you don't have that, it's easy to point the finger at an immigrant whose fault it isn't, that you're actually not in good position. And I think that's what the federal government, what President Trump, what Stephen Miller are looking to do, to divide people, point the finger at somebody else rather than taking responsibility and being the kind of government everybody deserves.
Alderman Vasquez from Chicago. Thank you, sir. Thank
you. Good morning, everyone. It's 40th Ward Alderperson Andre Vasquez. I'm reaching out, speaking to you directly. I normally don't have this kind of conversation, but I think we should. Some of you may have seen yesterday, the news broke that our Chief of Staff, my dear friend and fellow organizer, Catherine Cat Sharp, has been indicted by the federal government related to protest activity that occurred at the Broadview processing facility, which in reality is a detention facility. As you know, these are difficult times for anyone. We're seeing political attacks by the Trump administration against people exercising their freedom of speech, against people standing on the right side of history in the face of fascism coming down from the federal government against its own people. And so I ask that you all support. But something that doesn't get mentioned, obviously with everything going on, Cat's also running for 12th District Cook County Commissioner. And in order to be successful in that endeavor, it requires support. It requires donations, it requires volunteering. And in a time where, if you could imagine, someone is being hit with an indictment charge, there's all these things that are happening in the moment. For those of you who are asking how can we support Kat, I'll make the ask for her. What you can do is you can sign up to volunteer or donate at catherinesharp.com. This weekend, we're gonna have a number of canvases, and I think it would show the city, it would show the Trump administration what it looks like when we all stand up in support of someone who stands up for us. If you are able to, if you're willing to, please consider going to catherinesharp.com and then either donating your time or making a financial contribution to make sure we can support the efforts so that Kat can be our next 12th District Cook County Commissioner. I'm in full support. I have been in full support. I continue and remain to be in full support, and I ask that you join us.
Offices in America. But really, I think what drives them is the fact that they're doing the will of the American people. They have a president that supports them, and they have a secretary that's leading from the front. And they know that the administration has their back.
Our local police department will not ever cooperate with ICE.
You know, it's scary, these numbers, but the men and women of ICE know they're out there, you know, conducting a crucial mission. And, you know, what really bothers me is the fact that we have so many elected officials that are actually advocating running from law enforcement, resisting law enforcement, right?
Our local police department will not ever cooperate with ICE.
Right? We didn't see these vehicles being used as weapons until all of a sudden we had elected officials vouching for these violent actions, saying it's okay to resist ICE. You know, that vehicle is a deadly weapon. You know, law enforcement officers all across this country, not just ICE, but state, local, federal level, have to protect themselves in self-defense. That is a 2-ton weapon being used against them. And if they have to return fire, then they have to do what it takes to make sure they go home to their family every night.
Acting Director of ICE, Todd Lyons, good to have you in focus. Thank you.
Here are your receipts, proof, facts, and better said, invoices. You start something, you better be sure you can cash that check that the mouth spoke. If you enjoy the facts and truth, drop that like, share, comment, and subscribe by clicking on the all to be notified when new information becomes available. We will catch you on the next one, because as long as the truth is concealed, we will reveal. We will be back in touch with our fact/truth seekers later.